The following correspondence was intercepted by the Bureau of Aberrant Phenomena on the morning of October 29, 1987, from a 14-year-old girl named Rebecca Finch, resident of Sector 14, Ashmont Township. Her handwriting deteriorated noticeably throughout the document. The paper was stained with what appeared to be tears and perspiration, crumpled and ripped along multiple edges. The envelope bore a postmark dated 6 days prior to its arrival at our facility. By the time our field agents opened the letter, the events Miss Finch desperately chronicled had already reached their devastating conclusion.
This is an Eyes on Channel 7 broadcast. What you just heard was the first known appearance of an anomaly. What you're about to see.
Letter transcript begins. Dear whoever finds this, there's something living in our house with us. I don't know what it is. I don't know how to explain what I'm seeing without sounding insane. It arrived 11 days ago. At least, I think it was 11 days. Time feels strange now, like I'm losing pieces of it. Hours disappear. I'll look at the clock and it will say 3 a.m. Then I'll blink and suddenly it's 3 a.m. again. But the digital display looks different, older somehow. I just know that one evening it wasn't here, and the next morning it was standing in our kitchen. It doesn't make any sound when it moves. Not footsteps. Not breathing. Nothing. It just appears. Sometimes I'll turn a corner and it's standing there in the hallway, facing the wall. Sometimes it's positioned just outside my bedroom door when I wake up at night. I've tried looking directly at it, really looking at it, but I can't. My eyes won't focus. They slip away like oil on water, like my brain is protecting me from seeing something it can't process. My mother and father see it too. I know they do, but they keep insisting it's my sister. I don't have a sister. I've never had a sister. I've checked our family albums 17 times. I've counted the people in every photograph, every Christmas card, every birthday party video. It was always the three of us. Just three. But now there are 4 people living in this house, and everyone except me thinks this is normal. Miss Finch proceeded to describe how her parents first encountered the figure on a Tuesday evening near the staircase landing. She stated it was positioned beside their family portrait, standing motionless, its face pressed so close to the wall that its nose should have been touching the plaster. Her father initially believed an intruder had broken into their home. He grabbed the baseball bat from the hall closet and approached, shouting for it to turn around. But when he got within 3 feet of it, he stopped. He lowered the bat. His hands began trembling. He told Rebecca's mother that he couldn't make out its face, that when he tried to look at it directly, a crushing pressure built behind his eyes, a weight that made his thoughts scatter like startled birds. Her mother experienced the same sensation. Both parents described feeling suddenly dizzy, confused, their memories becoming slippery and unreliable. Within minutes, they had convinced themselves it was just their imagination playing tricks, just shadows and exhaustion. But Rebecca could still see it. She could still feel its presence, cold and wrong, like a pocket of dead air in the center of their home. It convinced them. I don't know how, but it convinced my parents that it's always been here, that it's always been part of our family. 3 days after it arrived, Mom started setting an extra place at dinner. She put out a 4th plate, 4th glass, 4th napkin, all arranged carefully like she'd been doing it for years. When I asked her why, she looked at me like I was stupid. For your sister, Rebecca. Don't be cruel. You know she hasn't been feeling well. I told her I don't have a sister. I said it 5 times. 5 times, and each time she just looked more confused and upset, like I was the one making things up. Then she said something that made my blood go cold. Rebecca Marie Finch, don't you dare talk about Lily that way. Not after everything she's been through. Not after the accident. There was no accident. There is no Lily. But my mother said it with such conviction, such absolute certainty, that for just a moment I doubted myself. For just a second, I wondered if I was the one going insane. From that night forward, the entity began manifesting more frequently throughout the Finch residence. Rebecca documented its locations obsessively: doorways, corners, the narrow space between the water heater and the basement wall. It favored thresholds, places of transition where one room ended and another began. It never fully entered Rebecca's bedroom, but she wrote that she could sense it watching her as she tried to sleep, could feel its attention like cold fingers tracing the outline of her body beneath the blankets. She mentioned its stillness repeatedly throughout her letter, the unnatural quality of its immobility. It doesn't blink. When I catch glimpses of its eyes, they're completely motionless. And it doesn't breathe right. Its chest rises and falls, but the rhythm is wrong. Too slow, too deliberate. Like it's mimicking what it thinks breathing should look like, but doesn't understand why we do it. Over the following week, Rebecca's parents exhibited increasingly disturbing behavioral changes. Her father purchased clothing from the local thrift store, women's clothing in a size that would fit a teenage girl, claiming Lily might need something comfortable to wear around the house now that she's home from the hospital. There had been no hospital stay. There was no Lily. Her mother began speaking to it in soft, soothing tones, never looking directly at it, but always aware of where it stood. She would call out to it from other rooms. "Lily, sweetheart, would you like some tea?" Or, "Lily, don't stand in the dark like that. Honey, come sit with us." When Rebecca attempted to tell her English teacher, Mrs. Pemberton, about what was happening at home, the school counselor contacted her parents immediately. Her mother arrived within the hour, smiling tightly, apologizing profusely for her daughter's episode. She explained that Rebecca's sister Lily suffered from a rare immunodeficiency disorder that prevented her from attending school, and that Rebecca had been experiencing stress-induced delusions lately, confusing her medication schedules, forgetting important family events. After that meeting, Rebecca's parents stopped allowing her to leave the house unaccompanied. I think it feeds on acknowledgement. Every single time they say its name, every time they call it Lily or talk about it like it's real, it moves a little closer to becoming something solid, something permanent. It's learning how to smile now. I've seen it practicing in the bathroom mirror when it thinks no one is watching. Its mouth moves too wide, stretches too far, but it's getting better. It's studying us, learning how to look human. Rebecca began documenting physical changes in her parents. Her father's eyes appeared clouded, filmed over with something gray and milky. They rarely ate meals together anymore. Both parents had developed severe insomnia, often wandering the house at night, circling the entity like moths drawn to a porch light. She wrote that her mother had begun sitting beside the creature on the living room sofa each evening, both of them staring blankly at the television screen even when no program was playing, just watching the static, motionless, for hours. The neighborhood animals began disappearing. First the Henderson's tabby cat, Marmalade, then the Chin's golden retriever, Winston, then 7 other pets within a 3-block radius, all within 5 days. Rebecca tried to warn her neighbors. She went door to door one Saturday afternoon, desperately explaining that something had infiltrated her home, something pretending to be human, something that might be responsible for the missing animals. But her parents followed close behind her, apologizing profusely, explaining to each neighbor that Rebecca had been under tremendous psychological strain, that she'd been having disturbing hallucinations, that the doctors were adjusting her medications. One neighbor, Mrs. Patricia Carmichael from 4178 Elderwood Drive, even offered to check on Rebecca regularly, concerned about the obvious distress on the girl's face. But when Mrs. Carmichael visited the following morning, Rebecca's mother met her at the door with an apologetic smile, explaining that Rebecca wasn't feeling well and shouldn't have visitors for the foreseeable future. Doctor's orders. From that point forward, Rebecca noticed the neighbors regarding her differently when she managed to leave the house. Their expressions were pitying, uncomfortable. Some crossed to the opposite sidewalk when they saw her approaching. The thing seemed to enjoy this. I could see something like satisfaction in the way it held itself after my parents convinced the neighbors I was crazy. It understood what isolation meant. It understood that if no one believed me, no one would come. Bureau investigators later discovered that the Finch family had relocated to Ashmont Township only 3 years prior and maintained minimal contact with the surrounding community. They declined invitations to block parties, rarely engaged in conversation with neighbors, and were known primarily for their politeness and privacy. When Rebecca began her desperate door-to-door pleas, few neighbors possessed sufficient familiarity with the family's normal dynamics to recognize the anomaly. Most assumed they were witnessing typical household dysfunction, stress, mental illness, adolescent behavioral problems. When the Finch family stopped answering their door entirely, when their curtains remained perpetually drawn, when their car sat motionless in the driveway for days at a time, no one thought to question it. No one contacted authorities. The entity appeared to comprehend and exploit this social isolation. The less attention the Finch family attracted, the safer its presence remained. Our behavioral analysts believe the anomaly possessed rudimentary strategic intelligence, understanding that suburban privacy norms would protect it from detection. I saw it outside last night, just standing beneath the streetlight at the end of our driveway, completely motionless, staring up at my bedroom window. The streetlight flickered and died. When it came back on 3 seconds later, the thing was gone, but I could still feel it watching me from somewhere in the darkness. I tried calling the police using the neighbor's phone when Mom and Dad were asleep. I barely whispered the address before I heard footsteps behind me. It was my father. His face looked wrong, slack and empty, like a mask that didn't fit properly anymore. He took the phone from my hand. He disconnected the call. Then he said, very quietly, "It upsets Lily when you talk about her like that, Rebecca. It makes her think you want her gone. And if you keep insisting she doesn't exist." He paused, and something moved behind his eyes, something that wasn't my father anymore. "She might decide you're the one who doesn't belong here." The letter's handwriting deteriorates significantly in the final section. The letters become jagged, trembling, pressed so hard into the paper that several words tear through. For the past 4 nights, it's been standing in the hallway outside my room. Just standing there, watching. It doesn't move, doesn't speak, doesn't even pretend to breathe anymore. I try to keep my eyes closed, but I can feel it there. Feel its attention like something physical pressing against my bedroom door. I heard that the Bureau of Aberrant Phenomena helps people when impossible things start happening. That's why I'm writing to you. That's why I'm begging you to come. Last night, it wasn't in the hallway anymore. It was standing at the foot of my bed. It didn't move for 13 hours. I know because I watched the clock the entire time, too terrified to blink, too terrified to breathe. Please come soon. Please believe me. Please. Letter transcript ends. Bureau investigators discovered an additional document in the envelope, a small piece of lined notebook paper that Rebecca did not reference in her primary correspondence. On it was a handwritten list in pencil. People who live in this house. Mom, Catherine Finch. Dad, Thomas Finch. Rebecca, me. Next to those 3 names, faintly visible beneath heavy eraser marks, was a 4th entry. A single name written and rubbed out so many times the paper had torn completely through in that spot, leaving a ragged hole. Our psychological analysts believe this represents the entity's continuous attempts to establish cognitive influence over Rebecca, identical to the process it had successfully completed with her parents. The list served as a written anchor to reality, a physical reminder of truth that the anomaly could not manipulate. The extended observation period, those 13 hours it spent motionless at the foot of her bed, likely represented a final concentrated effort to break her resistance, to make her forget, to make her acknowledge Lily as real. Unfortunately, the Bureau of Aberrant Phenomena receives more than 800 letters weekly, and our field response teams operate under severe resource constraints. By the time senior agents Kowalski and Chun reached the Finch residence at 2847 Blackwood Terrace, it was already too late. The agents discovered clear signs of violent struggle. Furniture overturned, walls damaged, photographs torn from their frames and scattered across the floor. Most disturbingly, there was no evidence of a 4th resident in any official records. No birth certificate, no school enrollment, no medical files, no social security number for anyone named Lily Finch. However, the residents displayed unmistakable signs of what the Bureau classifies as a Class 3 presence entity. Spatial distortions, temperature inconsistencies, electromagnetic interference patterns consistent with reality alteration phenomena. A blood trail led from the living room through the kitchen, out the back door, and into a clearing approximately 40 yards into the tree line behind the property. There, senior agents Kowalski and Chun discovered the remains of 3 individuals: Rebecca Finch, aged 14, Catherine Finch, aged 41, and Thomas Finch, aged 43. The entity was still present. Agent Kowalski described it as shifting rapidly between human and decidedly non-human configurations, as if the disguise it had maintained for weeks was finally collapsing. It appeared to be struggling, fighting to hold its stolen form together, but failing. When it recognized the agents, it opened its mouth impossibly wide and released a sound that Agent Chun later described as the noise a broken television makes, but somehow wet, somehow full of teeth. The entity was neutralized shortly thereafter using standard Class 3 containment protocols, Bureau analysis, and public warning. This incident represents the first confirmed case of a presence-class anomaly successfully infiltrating and occupying a family residence for an extended duration. Previously, such entities manifested only as background intrusions, things glimpsed in peripheral vision, shadows that moved wrong, figures observed at abandoned locations. Direct household infiltration with sustained family unit integration had not been documented before the Finch case. While we cannot state this with absolute certainty, our field analysts believe that pretender-class anomalies, those entities capable of mimicking human appearance or rewriting identity perceptions, may be evolving their survival strategies. Over the past 18 months, public awareness campaigns and increased bureau intervention have led to significantly fewer successful hunts for these entities. Many pretenders may now be resource-starved, desperate, and adapting new predatory behaviors to survive. Our current theory suggests that the entity which infiltrated the Finch residence may have originally been a pretender-class anomaly that, unable to maintain its disguise after failed hunting attempts, degraded into a presence-class entity, a being that cannot lie or disguise itself, but merely exists, feeding on acknowledgement and cognitive acceptance. Current Bureau research focuses on Rebecca Finch herself, specifically on what neurological or psychological factors made her mind resistant to the entity's reality-altering influence for as long as it was. Field analysts believe the handwritten list discovered in her envelope may have played a crucial protective role. Written affirmations of memory, particularly those tied to names and family structure, appear to ground individuals in a consistent version of reality, creating cognitive anchors that these entities cannot manipulate. In Rebecca's case, the simple act of writing down who actually lived in her house appears to have preserved her awareness and prevented complete psychological integration into the false reality the entity was creating. Mandatory civilian precautions. Read carefully. The Bureau of Aberrant Phenomena urges all citizens to implement the following protective measures immediately. 1. Create a household roster. Write down the complete legal names of every person who legitimately resides in your home. Include yourself. Be specific. Use full names, not nicknames. 2. Display your roster prominently. Keep this list visible in multiple locations: refrigerator, bathroom mirror, bedside table. The more locations, the better. 3. Verify daily. Read your household roster aloud once every day. Make this part of your routine. Morning coffee, brushing teeth, before bed. It doesn't matter when, only that you do it consistently. 4. Trust your written record. Pretender and presence-class anomalies have not yet demonstrated the ability to read or comprehend written language. Your list cannot be manipulated. If your memory conflicts with what you've written, trust the written record. 5. Immediate danger signs. If at any point you notice someone in your home whose name does not appear on your list, or if someone insists they have always lived with you despite not being listed, contact your nearest Bureau of Aberrant Phenomena field office immediately. Do not confront the entity directly. Do not attempt to reason with it or prove it wrong. Do not let it see that you've realized it doesn't belong. Simply leave the residence calmly and contact authorities from a safe location. Remember, these entities feed on acknowledgement. The moment you truly believe they exist, they become real. Your written list is your only protection. Use it. Bureau of Aberrant Phenomena. Sector 14 Field Office. Vigilance preserves reality.
Eyes on Channel 7 is signing off. Stay tuned, stay safe.